Well, in the shop, I finally got this thing. I've been wanting one of these for a long time. And I knew, well, at least it said, that these are coming in the end of November. I put my money down about 2 weeks prior or more as a pre-order, hoping that I would still get one. They came in, box showed up at the house. Pretty happy about that. These things are like highly allocated. It's like trying to get a bottle of Pappy's bourbon. Pretty tough call, you know. Look, I'm not going to go into details about how much I enjoy flying this plane, but I really enjoy flying this plane. I'm glad I got it. The thumbnail, I say, hey, this isn't for sissies. What I mean is, look, if you only want to drive 6 screws into your plane and then go bind and fly it, this ain't it. Okay, there's a lot more to it. You got to glue the wings together. You got to glue the fuse together. You got to glue on all these little bits here. It's going to require some tuning. You know, things aren't perfect. And so it's part of modeling. And that's okay. For me, it's okay. If it's not okay for you, maybe this isn't the right plane for you. But by the end, I think I'm going to try to convince you that this plane is right for you. So in this video, I'm going to do what I always do. I'm going to go through all the parts. The assembly on this, it's longer. So I'm breaking, you know, all of this up into chapters as best I can. Because, you know, there are a lot of pieces and parts and things that I did maybe different than others on my assembly, or at least to show you what I also learned from some of the guys on RC groups and what they were posting. We're going to fly it, I'm going to maiden it, tune it, fly it some more, do a bunch of landings. Because, wow, you got to get one of these things. Anyway, stick around. If you have any questions, you know, go down in the comments and leave something. If you like the videos, you know, hit the like and all the cool stuff. I appreciate it. It makes me feel good and helps out the channel. Stick around. Well, here it is, all out of the box. A couple things, as I kind of noticed, I mean, just the quality of the decals, the paint job, hinges, everything is fantastic. I mean, you know, just really top-notch stuff. On here, a bunch of folks said that this is a weak part, and I could see how that could get weak. There's not a lot of foam or structure here, so inserting a carbon fiber rod in this meaty part right through here makes sense. Doesn't look hard. A lot of people have done it in RC groups. The wings, it's a 1.5, pretty big. Got your traditional lights, big flaps. I mean, it's just, yeah, just the size of it. Like, anytime you open up one of these boxes with a big plane, it's just impressive. You don't think about how big it is, but this fuselage here is monstrous. You know, I've got a pretty big size hand, and just the canopy alone, it just takes this plane to a whole nother level. Good quality, paint is good. Let me crack open the top here so you can see inside. This requires a little force. Got some straps, which I'm not crazy about. We'll swap those out for something else. Put in our shelf liner, route this somewhere, wherever it needs to go based on CG. Not sure where that's going to happen there. A lot of room for receiver, a lot of room for all the electronics, running satellites wherever I need to, because that's for sure what I'm going to do in here. Quality receiver and a satellite, just because. Going to go through the process of the build. I'll record it all and take you along with me. All right, the surfaces, a lot of paint was all over this. So taking all the paint off, getting it all nice and rough, wiping it down with alcohol, and then hitting it with the blower that I have, an electric blower, to clean it all up. Same thing here, a lot of paint around the outside here. And in here wasn't too bad, but roughed it up nonetheless. Get it all ready to go. So, okay, first thing I'm going to do is apply epoxy to the inside portions of this. it's a tight fit, so this epoxy is gonna definitely, a little bit will go a long way. A little bit more. Okay, got my coat of epoxy. Now, just fell on the ground. Now I'm gonna get my medium CA and run a bead around here. Okay. And now here's where I might not be on camera very well. I'll try to do my best, but the risk of not doing this right, having one shot at it, and I'm going to spray a little accelerator on this end. All those pieces just went in fine. All right. Not sure if you can see it on camera or not. we'll find out, but basically got it smashed together like so. I've got a little bit of stuff coming through, probably the way I was holding it. Some of that medium CA dripped a little. That's okay. All right, the fuse is right there, leaning up against that. You know, frankly, it's dry. I mean, the CA, there's enough CA in there to hold everything in place. The epoxy's almost kind of just for insurance, but the epoxy's not solid yet. It takes 3 to 4 hours for that G-Flex to get kind of hard. Anyway, now we got the wings. And one of the things I was thinking about is it's intimidating to glue these things together, to glue pieces and parts together. Often, if you're used to just opening the box and screwing on the wings and tail section and you're good to go, this one, there's got a little bit more to it. So, but you've got awesomeness. So, you know, the next step is getting these wings together. And I did the same thing, sanded, alcohol. I also took my razor knife.
Well, my audio cut out when I was talking about making hash marks with my razor knife. So that's what I did there, just to give the epoxy a little more bite.
Okay, we're going to glue the wing halves together. I have that aluminum bar right there slid in place. I'm going to put those pieces together and put them in here. I'm going to do a dry fit first, just to make sure everything clamps down properly. So these guys, they have little triangles facing forward. Those go in the front. These ones go in the back. Looks like that might get fitted a different direction. Yeah, they fit flush. If they don't fit flush, you got them in backwards. So now, gonna take 4 screws and do a dry fit. Make sure everything goes smooth on the dry fit, and then, okay, those all bite. They work fine. Gonna take those screws out. Mix up some epoxy. And get this thing glued up. Okay. Get my epoxy. And I'm just gonna try not to make a mess of things while I do this on camera, but yeah, I think I'm gonna have to figure out a better way to do this. Okay. basically putting a decent amount on the now. Gonna slide these together. Got those together. And let me see if I can get this on camera. What I'm gonna do here, which is a little saran wrap here, so it just so I don't accidentally glue the plane. Glue the plane to the fuselage. That would be bad. Okay. So now four screws, and get this screwed in place. And there's a slight gap right there. It's slight. It's not going to cause any issues, I don't think. And I think those pieces will glue up good. And that's it, folks. We're going to let this sit overnight and let everything cure well. And then we should be good. Tomorrow we'll do some of the rest. It's a good looking plane. All right. It is the next morning, and gonna remove the screws and take the wing off and check everything. It looks good, and voila. A little bit of a gap, and I'll probably work some epoxy in there and let that, and yeah, I'll probably just dabble some epoxy in there or some other type of glue, but yeah, yep, all good there. So, again, audio kind of cut out while I was jabbering on about this issue with the stabilizer there. And right there at the hinge part, it's a weak spot. People have broken off that little ear while in flight. So, the cure is a carbon fiber rod shoved into the foam that will extend past that hinge. Here I'm showing my carbon fiber rod and how I'm going to line that up. First step for me was taking a straight pin and using the straight pin as kind of an initial guide. The carbon fiber is sturdy, and I sharpened the tip of it to make it a little pointy. But I decided, you know what, I'm going to use this straight pin, do my first kind of stab, if you will, at it. And, yeah, pun intended. Do that, and then I'll come in with my carbon fiber rod and jam that into that hole. I'll show you the process. All right, the pin has been inserted in the right direction. I feel very good about it. Really kind of slow that process. I'm going to pull the pin out and start jamming in the carbon fiber rod. Now again, I'm watching on all sides to make sure I'm not shoving that rod out the outside and making a hole that's visible. The only thing that should be visible is just that little black dot on the ends of the elevator. So I slowly continue to turn it, make sure it's going the right angle. I don't like that angle so much. I'm going to give it a retry here, get a better angle.
that goes in the direction I want. Up, that looks good, and push, push, push all the way in, and then finish it off by just pressing the elevator down and just jamming the whole thing in. I didn't glue it. I mean, it's such a tight fit. Where's it going? It ain't going to pop out. So didn't even put any glue in it. All right, pretty simple. You can't see it, and it gives it some strength. So on to the next thing.
Gluing this little tail piece on, and I kind of want to just scratch up the surface a little bit. It's also painted, and the paint just comes off, so I wanted to make sure I'm a little bit better adhesive. It's not like it's a structural part, it's more for show, but we have elevator goes into elevator. Make sure that's all the way in. And it goes like so. This takes a lot of downward force when you're screwing in to get these things to start biting into that plastic. So I was having a little difficulty getting these things started. So now what I've done is just basically I took a hobby knife and just put in that hole just to flare it ever so slightly, and then I put a screw in to kind of get it tapped, essentially, because there's no bushings, there's no brass, threaded brass piece inside here. It's just like it has to self-tap with these. At least that's what it looks like to me. So, just having a hard time getting these screws all the way in. So, we're going to give this another try, get this piece in, lock that in, make sure everything lines up, and this is out of the way. That needs to go like that. That goes like that, and yep. All good there. Now I'm just going to try to flip it over and screw this in. So there's a lot of thread that goes into those things. Wear my arm out. Tightening this thing up. There we go. All right, tails on. Woof. That was a lot harder than I thought it would be. Just little tweaky things that were frustrating. All right, so we are adding on these little plastic pieces. Added on a couple of them. I am using a little sandpaper to rough up the edge here, remove some of that paint, and using, in this case, I'd use foam tack. You could use a bunch of different things. This is what I have. Got a big fresh tube of it, so this is what I'm using, foam to foam. It works fine. It's a good adhesive. I'm going to put that on there, and that piece is going to slide right into there. And then I use a Q-tip to kind of just clean up the edge there, so you don't have a glop of glue on it. But anyway, so all I'm doing here is just using a little sandpaper, just roughing it up, and then those slide in. There's little cutouts, and that slides in like so. So, going to finish those, and then get the radio all sorted out. Get a receiver. Going to put in a Spectrum, probably 6-channel with telemetry and a satellite and all the cool stuff on this plane. Okay, I've done a ton of work off camera. I get carried away sometimes and just start cranking stuff. Anyway, couple things. One is just the battery compartment area. as far as putting down the shelf liner. Put on a different strap that has a little bit better of a latch on it. Protected these wires with a little sleeving. These two white wires here, these cables, come out of the wings. You have a left side and a right side. They need to go in the corresponding connector on the board. So as you're assembling at the field, put left on right, left and right on right. For me, on the right one, I took a Sharpie and marked the plug, basically with a black marker, and the corresponding plug where it goes into with black, so I know which is which. I have an AR8360T in there. Got that all set up. It's got AS3X Plus already installed. I'll tune it as I go. Cabling is all zip tied and attached to the wall just to keep it a little tidy. Got the antennas in. For the most part, I think that's it. The retrack up front, the nose gear, has the wedge of wood underneath it to support that gear. There was an issue with some of the first models that came out that retracts were breaking. So this is all taken care of. As far as the amount of bounce, I think is adequate. It's not super far, but not a lot of travel, but I think enough. And it's not too soft. All in all, I think we're good to go. Got the prop built, and I've noticed that it has a little bit of wiggle to it on those little pivot points there. I assume that that is okay. Went into RC groups and read as much as I could. Didn't see anything definitive about that being an issue. So I might reach out to that group and see maybe there's something I'm doing wrong on my assembly. Who knows? Anyway, we'll get that all set up, and control surfaces are checked. AS3X Plus is checked on the directions. Need to work on my throws on the radio, but other than that, I'll set up the throws kind of middle. I'll probably do 3 different. I'll do a low, medium, high based on what the manual says, and fly it like that, and then determine kind of what I like from an elevator, aileron, rudder input. And play around a little bit, see what other people have done for the flaps and elevator mix. And we'll be getting this thing in the air real soon.
So finding the CG on this plane shouldn't be hard. There's a part inside the battery compartment that says here's where the center of gravity is. There's documentation that says gravity, the CG is between 70 and 80. Then there's other documentation that says it's 80. So going with RC groups and just going with a lot of comments, ended up putting a 740 gram battery, an HRB 5000, shoved that all the way back. It seemed like it was still a little nose heavy, so I did add a ½ an ounce to the very back of the tail light and basically installed it inside a cavity in the rudder. After trimming out the plane and flying it, that's kind of what the elevator looks like right there. So just kind of a comment. It worked fine. Everything worked out great, but it was just one of those things.
All right, we got the Super Tucano from Evios, maiden flight. Did the range check, checked everything I can think of. Gonna take it off, run it through its paces, bring her back down, and check everything out. I'm gonna set my timer for 5 minutes. Got a 5000 HRB. Hopefully that'll give me enough time. No AS3X on yet. Just gonna do a regular old flight. Okay.
Gear up.
Well, she wants to climb. Still wants to climb a little.
Time remaining 4.
Feel pretty good about that. Let's take her up. Rotate her over. Good. Plenty of power. Got it on kind of half mid rates. Gonna do an inverted up high. Do a little bit of a stall test. Fair amount of forward. Not too bad. Definitely doable.
Time remaining 3 minutes.
I'm gonna go up and do a stall test. Pulling back, pulling back, pulling back, pulling back. Boy, she just wallowed. I'm gonna give a little flap,
Takeoff flaps.
half flap. Pulling back, pulling back, pulling back, pulling back. And not much.
Flaps up.
Not much of a stall. Pretty easy. All right, I'm gonna do
Takeoff flaps.
landing approach here.
Landing flaps.
Got full flap.
Flaps up. Time remaining 2 minutes.
2 minutes on the timer. I think she's trimmed out decent. Got a little bit more work to do. Full speed pass. All right, drop gear,
Landing flaps.
full flap. And she's down. Just work on the steering. She wants to pull to the left.
Flaps up.
But boy, she slows down nice, flies nice, lands. I mean, an easy plane to fly. And yeah, work on tuning her a little bit, but from a maiden perspective, I'm pretty happy with that. Yeah, great little plane. Nah, great little. She's a huge plane. Okay, check out the battery and do a little tuning. I think I'll tweak some things, but I've got to figure that out yet. I don't know. Got a lot more flights. All right, flying the Super Tucano. Got a SMC high voltage battery in it, so let's see how she flies. Third flight.
Gear up.
Let's do a high-speed pass.
Gear down. Landing flaps.
Touch and go.
Time remaining 4 minutes. Flaps up. Gear up.
Go right ahead.
Just gonna do a couple of loops and then land.
Sure. Alright, we're going to do a nice slow pass. Pulling back to about half throttle, full flap. Backing down, I'll throttle even more.
Flaps up.
Okay.
Time remaining 2 minutes. Takeoff flaps.
And just got a little bit of flap. I'm gonna fly around a little slow, which her slow flight is fantastic. She's just a super stable plane. Very impressed with the flyability of this thing.
Flaps up. Time remaining 1 minute.
All right, let's bring her in for landing.
Gear down. Landing flaps.
Landing! Backing off on throttle. Got my line approach good. Pulling back in that elevator just a slight, just as she touches down. Couldn't be any smoother.
Flaps up.
Wow, what an incredibly easy plane to fly. So, just really quite a winner.
Motor off.
Alright, take her up, get a pretty landing out of her. Control check. Everything's good. Flaps, good. Everything's where it should be. Alright, take her up, get a landing.
Gear up. Gear down.
Drop gear.
20 seconds. Takeoff flaps. Landing flaps.
Got landing flaps on. Making my turn, slowing her down. Rocking her down, getting that nose up. That was easy.
Gear up. Gear down. Landing flaps.
Welcome to the shop. Let's summarize a few things. First, let's cover the looks. Clearly, it is a stellar looking plane. For me, looks are in the eye of the beholder. Some people might think it's ugly. I don't know. For me, I think it looks just phenomenal. The size is great. 1.6, fantastic. Big, long fuselage. It's at the field, it's a presence. We don't have a lot of planes like this at my field. And so me taxiing this thing out gets a little attention. It's kind of cool. I kind of like it. The lights, the stance, landing gear, the quality of everything that I saw in there, the motor, a speed controller, very, very good. Nothing was disappointing. Nothing was crap at all. So from an appearance perspective, top notch. Let's talk a little bit about the assembly. So the assembly, like I say in the intro, this plane is not for sissies. So I'm joking a little bit, little clickbait to get people to click it. I don't know. Look, none of us would have a problem gluing this thing together. There is some anxiety. I don't want to say that really, but because the word gets thrown out there all the time. But when you're gluing up the fuselage on your $500 plane and gluing your wings together, you want to make sure you get it right. So focus on that. Make sure you get it right. Go slow. Use the right glue. Take your time on that. The rest of the parts, they glue on pretty simply as I show in the assembly. So from assembling, not a problem. Only area where I really kind of struggled with at some point really was some of the screws in the tails and the screw for the wing, they didn't align perfectly. So you know how it is, you're screwing, it's not biting. You got to wiggle things around and align them better, and then they start biting. In the tail, I actually, in the vertical stabilizer, actually pre-screwed those so they went in better, and used a little bit of a taper to make it so they kind of fed in better. But again, not a problem. From an assembly perspective, tons of room in the battery bay. You can clean it up however you like. Add your shelf liner if you want, and different straps. That's what I do on mine. And for the most part, on assembly, it was a cakewalk. I want to talk a little bit about the center of gravity. And so in the manual that I have and the quick setup guide, one of them said 70 to 80, the other one said 80. Some people in RC group said even more than that or further back than that. I couldn't get it to 70 initially with a 750 gram battery, 5,000, shoved all the way back. And so I struggled a little bit with that, but was it where I was measuring? I was struggling with a little bit on exactly where to put it. Everybody else is saying, and friends of mine who have this plane said, HRB, 5,000, all the way back, flag's great. So I eventually went with that, but I did add a ½ ounce of lead in the tail, as you saw, in the assembly part. I added that just to give me a little insurance maybe, so it's not so nose heavy. And if I have to, I can push a battery forward to get it a little bit more, less tail heavy, if that was even an issue. But it wasn't, clearly, because when I flew it, did the CG test inverted, and it required just a little bit of forward pressure, not a problem. While trimming the plane, it required a significant amount of down elevator. So, but everything else on the tests were fantastic. I mean, full power, passes didn't require any adjustment at all. It didn't climb, it didn't dive. All the tests showed that it was fine. So for the most part, again, talking with friends, they're like, it flies great. Who cares? You got a lot of down elevator. It flies great. It flies straight. It'll do all the cool maneuvers I need from a CG perspective. All right, let's talk flight performance. I can't say enough about it. From a easy to fly airplane, easy being it doesn't have a lot of bad habits. It's not going to stall on you. It flies slow. It flies fast. It has unlimited vertical. It can be incredibly aerobatic if you want it to be. You want to do extreme aerobatics like John at Two Brothers, hovering the thing? Go for it. Not my style. I'm more of a scale guy, which this thing was perfect. Gobs of power. Performance-wise, from that perspective, I just loved it. It did everything I wanted to do. It was an easy-to-fly plane. Landings were a cakewalk. I mean, they really were. To me, this flies easier than my big FMS Tiger Cat, that 1.7. This is an easier plane to fly and an easier plane to land, and actually easier plane to travel with. But that's a whole other issue. So from that perspective, performance outstanding. Again, I can't say anything bad about it. Who is this plane for? This is for someone who is very confident in their ability to fly. Not an expert, but that you have some planes and you can fly them and you're not worried about crashing every time you land. That's who this plane is for, and somebody who's willing to spend a couple bucks. You're going to spend $500 for the plane, $100 for the receiver. You're going to invest in some batteries unless you have a whole bunch laying around. But still, there's a lot of dollars involved here. And so it's for that type of pilot who's okay with that and wants a bigger plane that's a little more unique. You're not going to see many of these at the field. Well, one, because they're so dang hard to get a hold of. So that's who I think this is for. Again, folks, I can't speak more highly about this plane. It has really become, it's going to be my favorite plane for 2025. I'm going to do probably see a lot of videos with it, a lot of landing videos, because it's just so easy to land. Anyway, if you have any questions, leave a comment. If you like this kind of content, hit that like button. I appreciate it. Have a great day. Take care.